Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I welcome you all in session number 7, April 25th, Saturday at 5 p.m. So you are all welcome to this session. Inshallah, we're going to start this topic of TAUHEED and SHIRK. So let's move on. The topic is again continued with TAUHEED and SHIRK. We did one session session number 6 on the same topic. So we covered some basics of Tawheed and Shirk, what are the differences, what is to be looked at, and what's like do's and don'ts kind of a thing. So we're continuing the discussion, and the main objective was there were several questions which came up during the session, before that session, and after the session. So we may not be able to address all of them in this session, but at least we can start with the basis, and then we can expand on it as needed. So with that, inshallah, we'll go with this session of Tawheed and Shirk. So let me open up again. The chat window sometimes closes without letting me know. Okay, all right. Let's move on. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Verse number 104 from Surah Al-Ma'idah, the 5th chapter of Holy Quran. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ تَعَالُوا إِلَى ما أنزل الله وإلى الرسول قالوا حسبنا ما وجدنا عليه آباؤنا أولو كان آباؤهم لا يعلمون شيئا ولا يهتدون. When it is said to them, come to Allah's revelations and to the messenger, they reply, what we found our forefathers practicing is good enough for us. Would they still do so, even if their forefathers had absolutely no knowledge or guidance? So you can imagine what topic we are heading to, because this basically is talking about the time when our Holy Prophet ﷺ started the message of Islam, and there were people who were idol worshippers in that culture. They came and they would always say that our forefathers have been doing these customs and traditions and cultures, so why would we change? So this is the verse which I have to begin with. So now it kind of reflects back to us on the traditions and culture. So when the word of tradition and culture comes in, there are several things which comes to mind immediately. First of all, we know that not all the cultural traditions and cultures are bad. I mean, it's not, everything is not wrong. And we will come to a point where we'll say, what is the test? What is, if you will, a litmus test in order to see if this cultural tradition is something which is the way we should be continuing with, or if there is something which we need to modify, or if we have to reject it for a reason. And we will talk about the reason. Why would we reject something? Basis of what? So let's talk about a few things before we get to that quickly. So all human societies everywhere in the world, it doesn't matter which religion they follow, which place they live, which geographical area they live, what language they speak, where they come from, what ethnic background they have. Everyone has some sort of a culture, some sort of a tradition. And that is basically what their elders or their forefathers have been doing. And they just follow that. That's a human trait, if you will. Humans learn from their own parents. Human learns from their own family. Human learns from their forefathers. What they have been done previously, they just follow along. And that goes on and on and on. So sometimes the cultures and the traditions are extremely good. They're helpful. They are supported by, and that's not, we should not ever reject all the cultures and tradition. We should not do that. That is not the right way of doing it. So some of those, if we will just talk about it briefly, let's say respecting our elders, especially parents. In some cultures, when elders walk into a room, the youngers usually stand up. They give their seat. They will try to, offer them their seat. If there is no seats available, they will prefer to stand and let the elders sit. And you might have seen it even in the public transport system. in some countries of the world where this is very normally being practiced, especially to parents. People do that all the time. I mean, it is something which is embedded in our system, in our culture, that if our parents are there or they walked into the room, we try to be respectful, at least respectful, meaning, do everything which is supposed to be done in front of them. Show your respect in any way possible. So these are some good traditions, and we will talk about it, why it is also good traditions, because it's supported by our religion as well. So kindness with the younger folks, most of the religion talks about it. It's nothing have to do religion, but again, religion also talked about it and the traditions also talked about it. So be kind to your younger ones. Inviting guests and offer hospitality. Okay, there were, traditions being told in different parts of the world that if someone, even in different locations, still today, if someone comes up to your house and they knock the door and say, I want to be your guest, you don't even ask them any other details. They say, yeah, come on, please. We will offer you a meal. If you want a bed, we will offer you a bed. You can rest. You can take care of yourself. And you could consider coming a guest as something like a rahmah to you coming to your home. So it is a very good tradition, and it's always helpful. It goes a long way. Helping the needy, anyone who is in need. That's also a culture. I mean, if you are eating and someone else don't have food, it's cultural traditions that you help them, you give them the food. And that's a very good tradition to follow. I mean, there are plenty of other traditions. I just listed a very high level few of them just to, begin the discussion. So not every tradition is wrong, or not every culture is incorrect. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that don't reject all cultural and tradition to begin with, okay? So now let's talk about some of those things which are also in the culture, but they are considered as bad omens, meaning people are afraid of it. They are scared of it. They usually, when things happen, they don't think differently. They just say, oh, that is going to happen. So definitely it's going to bring bad luck. Have you heard this word? Bad luck. That happens. And people do that, and people react accordingly. So again, we'll talk about it a little bit later. And so one of them, I'm sure in most cultures, they have this black cat comes in the way. You're getting out of your home and a black cat kind of runs over from your path, and you say, oh, that's a bad luck. I'm going back to my home. I would not go any further. Let's say move on. Next one is like number 13. And that is, again, it's also a lot of cultures have this kind of concept. I even heard, I haven't been to Japan, but I heard that sometimes they, I mean, maybe I have heard from reliable sources that number 13 floor is usually missing in Japan. After 12, they have 14. So I don't know if anyone can verify that, if anyone has been.
Hajj Hasnain, maybe I can comment on this number.
Yes,
13.
please, go ahead.
My brother is fascinated with this number 13. It's like, in this American culture, the number or the day Friday the 13th. He was trying to look at the roots of that thing. I looked it up on Wikipedia. It's pretty recent. It started in the 19th century. Just to make things brief, he believes, that's his belief, although he's not a Shia, he's very fond of Imam Ali. He believes that it's something satanic that has to do with despising the fact that Imam Ali was born on a Friday and on the 13th. And so this thing, Friday the 13th, became despised in Western cultures, although Westerners don't really know the roots of it. But he thinks it's something that has to do with shaitan, basically being pessimistic from the birth of Imam Ali on a Friday and on the 13th. If you look up, Imam Ali was born on the 13th of Rajab, I believe.
Correct. Yes.
And it's a Friday. So that's
true.
where he thinks it came from. I found that amusing. So
interesting. Well, when you mentioned the number, that's 13, and there is another number which is in Western culture also very important. They take it as bad luck. It's 666, the number of the devil, if you will.
That's true.
And that's also, I mean, this is all, if you will, if you go to the details of that, the people who believe them. And it has also been documented many times that if a person starts believing on certain things like that, something bad should or will happen to them. Meaning because of their brain power, the activity in their brain, they have so much belief on that, that actually it has happened. Yeah, this is a very good comment. Yes, it is 666 is actually is in the Bible also. So that's also one of the point that the why the 66 number, and there is a very good explanation of a 66 number relates with Holy Quran as well, but I'm not going to talk about it here. I'll just save it for Sunday, where I'm going to start talking on Quranic sciences on Sundays. That's a different topic. That's IBAT sponsored event. So just make it a point. Inshallah, I'll talk about it. Anyway, let's move on. Walking under the ladder. This is mostly Western concept, not Eastern. I have not seen in other parts of the world, but I heard about it quite a bit here. Don't visit anyone after returning from a funeral. It could result in a death. That's something which I've seen in mostly, other cultures like Eastern cultures, where if someone is walking back from home from a funeral, they would expect not to visit someone, not to stop by. They just go directly to their home, thinking that if they would stop by to another home, that would bring them bad luck, meaning somebody will die at that home. So that's kind of a, superstitious beliefs, if you will. Then the next comes as witchcraft. That's also something like a belief on witchcraft. Something will happen. There will be magic. There will be voodoo dolls and all that other stuff. That's a total different subject. We can talk about it more detail on it another time, not at this today. So other than that is knock wood for good luck. That's also I've seen it here. Mostly people do that, and I've seen it. A lot of people are doing it. They're thinking that if they knock wood on, and that would bring them good luck, instead of they wanted to stay away from something. They want to solidify something. They want hoping that something would come good out of that. So these are all those superstition, if you will, which comes into play. Now, how much all these kind of relates to our topic of Tawheed and Shirk? Anyone, any comments to that?
I think this is one of the most fundamental distinguishing between the mu'min and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The firm believer will never waver in their determination or their conviction that nothing comes except what will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's a very good answer, and I believe what we have been covering for a while, and I'm sure everyone who has a good understanding of their basic AQAID on Tawheed, this is one of the root things, that nothing happens in this world without the will and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anything of these above, which we call it bad luck, number 13, black cat, whatnot, whatever you can think about it, whatever comes to your mind, whatever is something which is like outside influence, if you will. So you see, we believe that death is something which we have a belief on, which is going to happen, and it's only happen when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permits it to happen. So there is no one else who can make it happen. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala they don't want it, or if Allah wants it, no one can save a person. It is our 100% belief. So there is no question or there is no doubt about it. So now, how come a cat or a number 13 would do something differently when Allah doesn't will like that? If it is Allah's will, He don't need a reason for bringing a cat in front of us, or a number 13, or a witchcraft, or something else which is superstitious in our way in order to have our death. Death is going to be inevitable. It will happen. It will happen on a certain time and space, place. And there are other methods, we can talk about it later, about how can a moment can avoid the death or extend the time which is given to that. Then that's a different subject. But again, that is also with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't think that there is something in parallel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala which somebody can do and avoid it. That doesn't happen. It's only with the will and desire and permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person can live so long, or that person can die so long. So all of these things, if we should not be believing on any of those, because we are who? We are Muwahhideen. We are the one who follow Tawheed. We do not follow Shirk, because all of these things trying to lead us into a Shirk, possibly Shirk, And we talked about it last time, that how the shirk khafi, which is the hidden shirk, which comes to us and quickly when we are not even, we are off guarded. We don't even want it to think about it, but it happens. And so we have to be extra careful for those situations where these type of things can cloud our judgment, may possibly stop us thinking straight towards the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are several different things which happens, which could be considered as shirk, but we have to be careful for that. So all these bad omens, we have to be careful, understand that these are something which humans have developed. And if you like to ask people, they have certain belief on these things. They will give you evidence after evidence after evidence, stories after stories after stories saying, oh, this happened to that guy, or that happened to that person, and this happened to that person. Do you, I'm sure everyone of you would have been aware of certain chain letters. I'm sure you have seen, nowadays it has become very popular on WhatsApp groups, right? Have you seen that? I'm sure most of you have seen those WhatsApp chain mails messages saying you have to send it out to X number of people, and if you don't do that in X amount of time, you will be ruined and your life will be destroyed. And if you do that, then you will get that good luck and you will get that thing or this thing or that thing. These are all 100% bad omens. We should not, these are superstitions. We should not believe them. Should not even, I mean, you know, these people are so smart these days. They take advantage of us. People, you know what they would come up with? They would come up with stories like, oh, someone has a dream, and you know, and they will use the names of our respected noble Ahlul Bayt. They will use the name of our Fatima Zahra or Ali alayhi salam or Zainab salamullah alayha or Hazrat Abbas or somebody whom we respect. So they will come up with something like this. They will make up a story and pass it along. And if you read through this story, this usually tells you, pass it on to that many people. If you don't, then this will happen. This bad omen will happen to you. And if you do that, then the best of luck will happen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala don't need all that. This is just a superstition. Please, please, please always delete those. Do not ever forward them because we don't believe on them. Okay. So if any concern, questions, please let me know. We'll move on to the next slide, inshallah. Okay, now here comes the main question. How do we find out if we are doing the right thing? Very simple answer. Very, very simple answer. The answer to that would be, if an act brings us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we should be confident it is the right approach. If otherwise, we should consider reviewing the actions. Go back, look at it, see what is it doing. Is it bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it taking us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because all the powers lies to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no other entity who had more powerful or even any power, if you will, which is not from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give powers to people, to us also. We have power. For example, I mean, somebody would ask, what type of powers are you talking about? Yeah, each person has power. Like we have power, we have energy, we have our body, we can move this body, we can do certain things. So this is the power. Who has given us? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So all these action and powers are given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So no one gets any power from any other alternate source, if you will. Everything comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now the next one, we should make sure not to follow blindly any acts, even if it was being performed by our respected elders, until we have clarity on it. This is a very critical statement here. Someone would come up and would say, you know what, I have seen this being happening by my dad, my mom have been doing it, my grandfather have been doing it. This is always being done right and there is no harmful effect. I have never seen anything wrong. I'm not saying reject it. Remember the earlier slide we talked about? Don't reject anything just because your parents have been doing it. They're not always wrong. They could be 100% justified and right about it. Try to research on it. Try to ask questions. First of all, ask questions from the one who has taught you that or who is teaching you that. Go and ask questions. If you are, and I can guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they will come up, they will say, you know what, we're just doing it for the sake of doing it because we have seen our elder doing it. But I'm sorry to say, I don't have any answer for it. But then the second question you will be asking, then why are you doing it if you don't know the answer to that? Oh, I have seen my dad or mom doing it, so there must be something good in it. So again, I'm not saying reject it. I'm saying ask some question, try to get clarity on it. Maybe if they don't know the answer, try to find on it. Try to do a research project, if you will. Go and ask people who are learned, who have more knowledge of the religion. Chat with them, discuss with them, talk to them. Ask the question that, okay, this is being practiced in my family for years and years and years. What do you think is, and how should we approach it? And they will give you some guidelines and formula. And we will discuss a few highlights here as well, just to see where we are and what should be some of our possible avenues would be. So now before we go there, I just wanted to introduce you here, and everyone knows about it, so we will quickly pass on from this topic very quickly. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu uti'ullaha wa uti'ur rasula wa ulil amri minkum. O believers, obey Allah and obey the messenger and those in authority among you. Surah An-Nisa, chapter number 4, 59 number verse. So this is basically giving us a ground rule. This is some verse which is being very well and many times spoken, especially in Majalis and from Mimbar. This is one of the very famous verse of Holy Quran. Most of us remember it by heart. What it talks about, this gives some basis of our religion, which talks about what? It says, follow command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, follow command of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, follow command of authority. Ulil amri minkum, among authority among you, meaning who authority means what? Appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we firmly believe there is 12 Imams alayhi salam who are following our Prophet. They are Hujjatullah, and they have been appointed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as becoming our leaders or our guides after the demise of Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the chain of authority, if you will. So none of them will contradict with each other. That is extremely important. We need to understand that fully, that none of them come to contradict. Why they don't contradict with each other? Because this is only the command of Allah, which comes through the Prophet as well and through the Imams as well. So there is no chance of any contradiction. This comes from Allah. Allah appointed the Prophet. Allah appointed the Imam. So how can be a chance of contradiction? So this is the chain of commands, if you will, and this is the basis of our religion. So why it is being presented here? Because when we are going to start analyzing the facts and say, why is it what we are doing? Is it have any basis? And many a times we will clearly find the basis, and sometimes we don't, then we have to do some little bit more additional research. So let's talk about the next item where we do. So now before I go there, I wanted to ask you a very generic question, which says, why do we love our Holy Prophet and Ahl Bayt? So just think about it a minute before reading my answers. Why do we love our Holy Prophet and Ahl Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam? And you will come up with several different possible answers which can think about it. So let's see. I have just listed a few. Maybe there are many more. So they are chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's one of the reasons, because remember, we wanted closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That was the basis we started with. Several different sessions we have talked about it. So we wanted to get closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is our objective. So because they are chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that's why they have a respect. They have been up to certain level of authenticity because Allah has chosen them. So that's the reason why we love them. We love our Holy Prophet when we love our Holy Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. Their obedience is wajib upon us, based on the previous verse of Holy Quran where it says, Utiullaha, Utiur Rasula, Ulil Amri minkum. So again, their obedience, we have to follow them. It is wajib upon us to follow them. Because who is saying that? Allah is saying that. So we love them. Why? Because Allah wants us, we have chosen by Allah. They are the ones whose obedience is wajib upon us. That's one of the reasons why we love them. They will be doing shifaat for us on the day of judgment. That's one of the very vital reason as well. We have talked about shafaat topic very detailed on that, and we know why the shafaat can be possible with the Allah's permission, inshallah. So this will be, yeah, this is a very good verse which you have, brother, you have written it out. That Holy Prophet himself has asked that we should be, loving the mawaddat to the progeny of Holy Prophet. That is extremely important for us, and this ayat gives this important information about it. So they will be doing shafaat for us. They provide tawassul to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are our role models as well. They are the ones who we can follow, and we can get nijat, and we get closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We could be having a very successful life if follow these, precious authorities, noble authorities, and that's one of the reasons we love them. And now we have a few things in our mind. One, we have a chain of command. We have to follow Allah, His Prophet, and Imams. Why we love them? We know why we love them. There are many reasons we should be loving them and we should be following them. So now, basis on all that, why we were trying to establish some basis, because now we are going to analyze the cultural and tradition based on all these bases which we have come across. So if it is acceptable, if we perform acts which are neither approved nor supported by holy Masumins, so is it acceptable? Can we do that? If we perform acts which are neither approved nor supported by holy Masumins? No. The answer is very simple, big no. If any act, it doesn't matter who is performing it, doesn't matter my dad is performing it, my mom is doing it, my grandfather is doing it, my neighbor is doing it, my teacher is doing it, or the Maulvi of my masjid is doing it, or whoever is doing it, I don't care. My bottom line should be, is it being approved or supported by holy Masumin? And who are holy Masumin? They are the Hujjat of Allah. This is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly. And next point, which is also very important, if these acts are not bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they may be questionable. I'm only saying questionable at this time. I'm not saying reject it. I'm not saying just leave it around. I'm not saying that start fighting a discussion with your elders. We are supposed to be always respect our elders. It does not matter if they differ with us. It does not matter if they don't agree with us. It does not matter if they have a different viewpoint. Yes, we have a right to discuss with them. We have a right to disagree with them. But do not ever lose the respect. Respect is something at most important for all of us. So please clarify on this mind. Make sure you have a very clarity on this point, that in order to disagree, it doesn't mean disrespect. These are two different things, and they are very, 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 very different from each other. Anyone has a question? Okay, let's move on. There will be two groups of people. This is where this is the tradition from our Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam, where he says there will be two groups of people who will be misguided. One who would disgrace us from our position, meaning they would not consider us our value where our position should be. So they don't take any benefit of us, or they would not put us the way we are supposed to be putting. And the others who would elevate us above our position. There is a word which is known as ghulu. That means raising someone, elevating someone above their position. So what do you mean by that? And think about it for a second. Many a time,
isn't there a Sheikh Hasnan? Isn't there a sect that is considered as na'udhu billah min dhalik kafir or najis?
Yes.
They are called ghalis because they.
Yes. Well, ghalis are not technically called themselves, or others would not call them as kafir, if you will. But based on this tradition of Holy Imam, which says they are the ones who do ghulu, so they are misguided, meaning they will face the consequences because many a times what they do is they, because of their ghulu, they raise the Masumeen's level higher than what a human being would be. They would increase their level from humans to become like a associate of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mazallah. And that is a complete shirk in any way. And that is not me saying, this is Imam Jafar Sadiq saying already, that ghulu will take them into a position which they will be completely misguided. So I'm not saying, or nobody even says Ghali would be as kafir, because they at least believe on Allah, but if they do shirk, then they become mushrik. They will not still become kafir. Kafir is something which, deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is a difference between mushrik and kafir, but again, we can call them mushrik in case if they would do something like that and increase the status of our holy Masumeen to a certain level of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then there is also another sect of Islam, which is, you might have heard about that. They're called as Nusairis. And they have a very completely different concept of our, especially Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay. So they are, this question which I think have been posted here, but do we not believe that Masumeen are made from the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Okay. That's a very detailed question, and I would address it at some point, but not right now at this time, because that would take me away from my topic. I have a lot to cover now. So we will talk about it. The point is, we have talked about Masumeen two sessions, I think session number 5, and we talked about very great detail about what we believe on Holy Masumeen alayhi salatu wassalam, and why they have elevated status. So if you go and look up the notes on session number 5, you will find the answer, but there are still a little bit more to it. We'll talk about it later.
Mashallah, so, you did an excellent job on that one. Alhamdulillah, I was present for that lecture. Yeah, that will be a great resource.
So that's a topic which I really wanted to talk more about it, but again, they were short on time, but so at least I covered the basis of that. Why is their status higher, and what should we be, taking benefit of them? Obviously, I mean, they are our role model, they are our guides, they are our, and why their status is so high in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because they have proved to be that, and they have come to the point, and they have got closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our job is to follow them, inshallah. So let's talk about the topic which we wanted to talk about a little bit more on it. So as far as this point of time, we clear up about the culture, the tradition, what is the source, what should be doing, litmus test, how do we test about it, if it is closer, bringing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it is taking away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now this is the most critical topic, sensitive topic, which happens all the time, and this becomes sometimes so conflict, some discussions happen because it's a very sensitive topic. And I would like to address it as neutrally as possible, without, I don't want to involve any sensitiveness here, or and I'm not taking any sides or anything. I'm not anyone, we are not against anyone or in favor of anyone. The objective is to find the truth and find it the right way, and going through the TAUHEED process. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our guide, and he will inshallah take us through this topic. So let's talk about it quickly. So I wish there would be some additional brothers and sisters on the call today, because they were the one who have asked those questions, but unfortunately they're not there. So we'll just go with it. Hopefully they can have a chance to go through the recording and have a little bit more clarity on the topic. So Muharram and tragedy of Karbala. This is one of our core topic, which we call ourselves as Shia of Al-Bayt, or Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. And we take pride on it. Why not? Rightfully, yes. So Muharram and tragedy of Karbala, we love Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and we feel grief when they remind ourselves the events of Karbala. That is, if you will, it's also human nature. People who hear about tragedies, they feel something on their heart directly. But because we are talking about the tragedy of who, no other than the beloved grandson of our holy prophet, and also the son of Imam Ali and Janabe Fatima Zahra Salamullah Alaiha, obviously it affects us. It affects us very much. And each year when the time comes, we feel grief, and that is nature, that is natural. We are not doing something unnatural, okay? So that is nature. If that happens, that is natural. It will happen. It doesn't matter where we are, which place of the world we are. If we are alone, and we have probably would have experienced it also, that let's say Muharram time comes in and we are alone, there is no one else to go by. Not in these days where you can always have an internet and you can dial in or listen to a lecture or a majlis anywhere in the world. I'm talking about times when there was no internet, when we were traveling alone, and there is no internet, there is nothing else to go by, and you are all alone. And then the kinds of day of Ashura comes in, and how you feel about it. It's personal feeling. You will, one will go through it. If you love someone, you will feel about it more and more and more. So we should be careful that none of our actions, even a tiny bit, against the approval of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Praying, now this is one thing which I wanted to refer to. Praying towards a lighted candle is shirk. We talked about it in the previous lecture, where we say, even though the person can say that I don't have the niyyah, I'm not praying this lighted candle, I'm praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in case, if there is a lighted candle in front of our salat, we are praying and there is a lighted candle in front of us, it is shirk, it is haram, or all the marjas are very clear about it. And why is that so? So somebody can ask this question, why is that so? We're not praying to the lighted candle, we are praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what difference does it make if we put a lighted candle in front of us when we are praying? And the answer is very simple. You know what they will say? Because it will resemble to a group of people, to a religion which is being practiced, and they worship what? They worship fire. They worship fire. So even though we have our niyyah khalis, meaning pure niyyah, that we are praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though there is no doubt about it, even though everyone knows we are Muslim, so we don't have to say that, no, we are praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What difference does it make if we put a lighted candle in front of us? But not all of the marcha say, no, it's haram. You're not supposed to do that. Why? Just because it resembles a non-believer? Yes, that is one of the reasons. So in our doing our actions, anything which we do, it should not also resemble someone which is a non-believer. Again, the objective is what? Getting closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. During the tragedy of Muharram, doing all those what we have to do and what we are doing in mourning activities, none of them, I repeat, none of them should not be coming a tiny bit which gives the possibility of shirk to anyone's mind. If somebody else is thinking about that we are doing any shirk, that should not be. That's a complete no-no. No, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be careful, very, 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 very careful, and then reflect us back. What are the things we have to go by? Is there a command of Allah about it? Is there a command of Holy Prophet about it? Is there a command of Holy Masumeen? And you know, tragedy of Karbala happened when our third Imam, Imam Hussain, got shaheed. So then our fourth Imam to the 12th Imam. So we have 9 more Imams to go after the tragedy of Karbala, and their acts and their sunnah is wajib upon us. We should be following them because they have commemorated Karbala and they have commemorated Ashura. They have told us how to do the mourning. So if we are deviating the path given by our Masumin, we have to reflect back. We have to check on it. We have to clarify on it. We have to make sure there is no shirk which is being shown on any of those which should be important. So again, I'm not just flat away giving all those traditions as wrong traditions. I'm not the one who can decide that. I'm just saying that be careful with that. We take action accordingly. Ask questions, why am I doing it? Is it something which helps my cause? What is my cause? Closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is my cause, right? If mourning of Imam Hussain take me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's the best thing we should be doing. Who is Imam Hussain? He is Imam appointed by Allah, Hujjatullah. He has sacrificed his life for what? For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why do we forget that? We shouldn't be forgetting that. So his objective would be what? Closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our objective is what? Closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we are commemorating his sacrifice on the day of Ashura or Karbala, our objective would be the same. Closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now any act which we are doing, we have to ask this question, is it taking me closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it a path which is going to become a shirk later on, or is it a path which is going to be a TAUHEED path? So these are some of the questions we should be asking ourselves before any action is to be taken. All our actions should be supported by Sunnah of Holy Masumin or their approvals. If they have done it themselves or they have approved it. If they have not said anything, that means it's acceptable. We can do it. If they haven't said anything, that's fine. If they have said something otherwise, we're supposed to stop it immediately. We should remind ourselves that all our Masumis are always truly seeking closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the beauty of that. We already talked about it. That why Imam Hussain sacrificed his life? Just getting closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we know Surah Fajr, and we have talked about it earlier also, that Nafs al-Mutmainna, the verse which talks about Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam, which is most of our Maraja and ulama are agreeing to the fact that this refers to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, this verse of Holy Quran. So now what has happened? This is also very interesting. Distortion in the history of Karbala. We usually go by the history by hearing to the majalis, going to the majlis and listen from speakers. Not always we get the authentic sources. Many a times we get different resources which comes to us. So now what has happened, if you look up the history, this is how it was developed. The first reports of the history of Karbala was given by whom? Hamid ibn Muslim. Who was Hamid ibn Muslim? He was an official reporter of Yazid's army. So what he was writing in favor of Yazid. He was not a follower of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And he was no lover of Imam Hussain. Because Imam Hussain, when the day of Ashura, when he has make this announcement, is there anyone who can help me? He was there. He didn't help Imam Hussain. So we should not be believing him, whatever he is saying. He would be writing something official diary for his ruler Yazid. And unfortunately, because he was the only writer at that time who wrote some history, that has kind of filtered into the history which we still have come to us in any way. The second person, or not second person, I would say one of the very, very, very serious person who has done so harm to the history of Karbala is this person. This is the person named Mullah Hussain Wais Kashfi. He wrote a book known as Rawdatus Shuhda. This book is in Persian. And there was a tradition in times in Persia where the power was with the rulers who were Shia, supposedly Shia at that time. And they were supporting the Roza Khani. Roza Khani was the tradition of lamenting during the days of Ashura and making the details about the events of Karbala. So he wrote a book, Mullah Hussain Kashifi, in Persian, Rawdatus Shuhda. This book was later translated into different languages. And this became very, very popular, especially in the subcontinent. I'm talking about India, which was United India, now it's India and Pakistan. This became very, very popular. It also became very popular in the Persian Iran. And people were following this book because, to lack of a better word, if you will, there was no other historical book available for the history of Karbala. So this became very popular. People used to read from this book all the possible, if you say musiba, if you will, and they were following that because it was translated into different languages, it was translated into Urdu, and that was one of the reasons why in subcontinent people started believing whatever this book talks about, and not only believing that, they started practicing it openly. So the problem was, and this is my question which I always ask, where were the ulamas doing at those times? Why did they not objected it? And my answer which I've been given many times, yes, they objected it. But they were not in majority. The media was not in their control. the media was different media those days. Like there was no internet, obviously. So people used to gather around. They go by the lamentation through Rawzatul Shahada. And there was one other fear which have been explained also by different ulamas. The problem was also there was so much restrictions on the zikr of Al-Bayt and the zikr of Ashura on those days by the rulers of that time. So they were afraid also that ulama used to say that, okay, if we stop them not to do Majlis of Imam Hussain or not to do commemorate Muharram, they'll just simply leave out of it. Meaning they will walk away and they will not even remember Imam Hussain. So in order to keep the tradition alive, they just kind of have a little bit of a blind eye sort of. That, okay, at least they are doing the right thing. Maybe someday they will get some akal and they will understand the logic and they will say, okay, that was the wrong information which we had. Now we have a time to research it out. Now we'll get to the right information. So now this is all who is saying, I'm not saying all that. Okay, this is not me. I am giving you a reference of a book from who serious criticism were done by Shahid Murtaza Mutahari. He's a very famous scholar from Iran. Most people know about him. And he wrote a book, Hamasai Hussaini. It's in different volumes. In Urdu, I have read it already, 3 volumes. It's in Arabic also, Al-Malhamat al-Hussainiya. That's the book in Arabic. I haven't found one translation in English. So if anyone who do not understand Arabic or Persian or Urdu, I'll have to find out a ways and means, at least if words come to words, and if somebody is in this forum, at least who do not understand Arabic, Farsi or Urdu, and they really wanted it in English, I would, offer myself, if anyone can support me as well, to write a summary of an English translation on it. If it is beneficial, if it would be helpful to others, especially the youths of today, if that can be helpful for them. So that is an extremely important book. Why it is extremely important book is because Shahid Mutahari was also a very highly religious scholar at his time. He had written this book, Hamasai Hussaini. What he had done, he had given instances, references to the historical events reported by who? Mullah Hussain Kashifi, and have commented on it, logical comments. For example, and I'll give an example right away, and that's one of the examples which is being reported. It's not possibly, I have not seen one in the Arab culture, but I have seen a lot in Indian culture, or if you say Indian Pakistani culture. What they talk about is a very important topic, which is known as Urusiye Qasim. Was Qasim ever got wedding on the day of Ashura or a night of Ashura in Karbala? And that is what this guy Mullah Hussain Kashifi has promoted that. And some people who are following him, they have started some traditions on the day of Ashura or the before Ashura. They think that it has happened, not think, they firmly believe it has happened and they follow it. And all those comments which Mullah Kashifi has given in support of that Urusiye Qasim, which is wedding of Qasim, Shahid Mutahari has rejected them point by point, point by point. If one reads through that, we can understand the logic why Shahid Mutahari has clearly denied everything which has been given by Mullah Kashifi. So the book Rawzatul Shuhada by Mullah Kashifi is nothing but complete distortion of the facts of day of Ashura in Karbala. Unfortunately, because it has filtered down to the masses, and there are people who are called themselves Zakirs. Zakir means who is the narrator, orator. They are not ulama. They are not ulama. They come on the day of Ashura and they give their musibah, and everybody loves them because they're bringing them musibah and they're bringing them to lament on that day. And people wanted to lament. The people wanted to cry on Imam Hussain on that day of Ashura. Don't take me wrong on it. The objective of this book was to motivate readers, listeners into lamentation, as this would be the only way for salvation and showing love of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. You know, Shahid Mutahari also have commented about Mullah Hussain Kashifi that what he has done was he has taken some Christian concepts, meaning Jesus was when Jesus died, he did salvation for his believers. So he took that concept out of that Christian concept and put it here as a Husseini concept. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who got misguided with this concept, and they think that this is the real concept, and this is the only reason why Imam Hussein sacrificed himself, just because for the salvation of the followers. Can you believe that? That is a concept which is completely against Tawheed, which takes you away from Tawheed. And we already talked about Imam Hussein himself very clearly says, what he says, the above would possibly undermine the real objective of the tragedy of Karbala and the mission of Abu Abdullah Hussein. And what he said was, he is doing only for Amar bil Maruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. If you read his speeches, why he has even started the mission from Medina to Mecca and Mecca to Karbala, why was he even started it out carrying his own family members, his women and children with him, not a big army with him, only a few family members and some fast friends with him? Why did they started to do that? They were not doing anything different, just to get closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Purpose was Amar bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. If we understand the purpose of the sacrifice of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we understand why Karbala happened in the first place, it is very, very, very easy for us that all those details which we have been told upon, or sometimes they have been forced down our throats forcefully, that is the only way. And there are people who are very sensitive about it. If you start talking to them about even about Urusi Qasim, they will start, giving you fatwa against you, even though they're not eligible for giving any fatwas to anyone. But they will come up and say you are kafir or something like that, and you are against Imam Hussein, or you are against Ashura, or you become a Wahhabi, and all kind of things will come up. This is complete nonsense. Us being followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam, we should use logic. We should always understand we wanted to what? Get closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We wanted to do what? Footstep of our holy prophet, footstep of our holy Masumeen alayhi salatu wasalam, and take this, that all our actions will take closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now in order to do that, what we should be doing? We need to analyze cultural traditions which are different in each culture for commemorating Ashura and Muharram. Yes, there are different cultures. Okay, as long as these objectives ask questions to our elders, the objectives and these traditions taking us closer to Allah or otherwise. This is important. Now the question would be, before we go there, let's talk about a few things. In culture for, let's say, Indian and Pakistani culture, I've seen it myself, and I've seen it also in Persian culture quite a bit as well. There are objects which are on display during Ashura. What does that mean? What am I talking about? These are reenactments of the events of Ashura also. This is mostly done in Arab culture. If you have a chance to go to Karbala during Ashura, you can actually see a physical, and I have seen it in Mashhad myself during Ashura, and my wife have visited Karbala a few years ago in Ashura. And then obviously you must have already have people who have visited Karbala during Ashura. You have seen those or you heard about those. There are actual physical drama happens, meaning they will pose somebody as different members of family of Imam Hussein, and they will have an army of Yazid, and they will actually reenactment will be done on the day of Ashura, which is sometimes you can see the live telecast now from Karbala as well on the day of Ashura. Objects which I'm talking about, there are display, meaning what? They have alam, they have Zuljana. It's a horse which is supposedly be the horse of Imam Hussein, resemble that way. And alam means what? It's a flag which was taken by Imam Hussein's army, meaning Hazrat Abbas. So there is nothing wrong in doing that. I'm not saying these are completely wrong. If the purpose of this is merely to remind us about the tragedy of Karbala, then there is no concern about it. Nobody would have any objection to it, because this is just reminders, just events or objects which remind us from the tragedy of Karbala. And it gives us a little bit more motivated to commemorate Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam or the Karbala. There is nothing harm in that. I would not say anything is wrong until unless, in case of this objective resemble an act of shirk, it should be completely avoided. So now what does that mean? Remember the example I gave you a little bit earlier? If a person is praying with a lighted candle in the front and then started praying on it and saying, okay, my niyyah is just praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is considered as shirk. We are not supposed to do that. Similarly, if we are reenactment or if we are having the objects which are part of our normal cultural traditions of commemorating Muharram, if as long as it is only for the reminding ourselves for these events of Karbala, it's okay to do that. There is nobody would say, no, it's wrong, it's completely not acceptable. But again, there's a big but now. This would be if in case if somebody tries to consider them to worship them. What is that supposed to mean? What have I said? Worship them. Meaning, we know that Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. This is none other than the verse of our Holy Quran of Surah Al-Hamd, right? We agreed that only the source of power is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who can give us something and he can take away from something from us. So as long as praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fine. Now understand, remind ourselves about the shifat and tawassul. Again, anything and everything, we always go to our holy imams and say, please pray for me. Pray for me. We don't ask from them because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate source who can give us something. So in that case, if we are having these display, meaning alam and other parts of which would be only for resemblance or reenactments only for resemblance, there is nothing harm. Let's say if somebody comes to an alam and asking something directly from the alam or asking something directly from the Zuljana, the horse, as an example from Imam Hussain alayhi salam. These are only imaginary objects. Do you think that this horse was the same horse which Imam Hussain used to ride in Karbala? No, not even. It is not even a, the family of that horse, if you will. This is just an ordinary horse from anywhere. You just decorate that horse and started thinking that this looks like a similar horse which Imam Hussain was riding on it. Or this alam is something which is similar what Imam Hussein's army used to have. This have no resemblance. You bought a piece of wood, a pole if you will, and bring some cloths, put it on that, and then you have an alam now, okay? So as long as it is started to resemble like something and you have to resemble just to have some sort of a reminding because of that, it's okay. But now once you started to consider that mutabarrik, give an additional support for that, meaning you are going to ask anything from that alam, that is completely shirk. Obviously, you're not supposed to ask anything. We are not supposed to ask anything from anyone except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the line where we have to draw and need to understand very clearly saying what can be done and what cannot be done. But in case, if, as I said, this example of having a candle lighted and praying behind it, it is shirk because there is a very concrete evidence for that. But now if someday people started worshipping a horse, for example, and then you start bringing the Zuljana, the horse which is resembling to Imam Hussein's horse, and people come and then started paying respect to it, thinking that it is something similar to that. And again, if there is a group of people who started worshipping a horse, you know what will happen? This will also become a shirk. Just like the candle example I've given you. Because we made it ourselves, the horse. We have the horse, we decorate the horse ourselves. And we are the one who is associating this horse with Imam Hussein's horse. No one has ever told us that this is the right way of doing it. Any of our imams have ever done that? No, none of them have ever done something like that. So who are we to make those justification and say, oh, we are right because we feel like doing it? That's not the way it's supposed to be. Important part, There is no feeling good or bad if it is not taking us closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the bottom line. And why we commemorate Imam Hussain is just because Imam Hussain alayhi salam has sacrificed himself for the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it reminds us to prepare for us to sacrifice ourselves in need to be to get closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, this is yes, that is true. You have a very good comment here. This is how the idol worship has started, because people have made idols on the image of their own respectable, noble personalities. And this is how they have started the idol worship. And they just forgot the connection between the imaginary, idols with the notable personalities. They started worshipping the idols, and that goes on and on and on. And centuries have passed by. And that is how they have 365 idols in Holy Kaaba itself. And that is how it happens. And by the Kaaba, a thought came into my mind. Let's say you have a model of Holy Kaaba. You go to Saudi Arabia, you bring a small model of Holy Kaaba and put it in your home, right? It's sitting there on a cupboard or an elevated place. Yeah, it's a model of Holy Kaaba. What do? Do you go and kiss that model every day? Do you go and ask your hajat in front of that Holy Kaaba's model? Just think about it. Have anybody done that? I don't think so. It's just a model to resemble us that looks like Holy Kaaba. Do we ask any hajat from them? No. Do we go and do muqaddas and then we start respecting it because this is Holy Kaaba, so we don't turn our back towards that? No. It's just a model. It's made by maybe plastic, for example, or cloth or some other material. It's not Holy Kaaba, it's just a model. Yes. Similarly, if it's an alam or a zuljana or something like that, which is an artifact which is just for resembling Muharram or Ashura or Karbala, it doesn't mean that it needed our respect. And I don't mean that you have to throw it down. I'm not saying that. Just do normal thing which we're supposed to bring, just to exactly the same which you're doing to the model of Holy Kaaba. And that would solve the problem. That would take away from that. But you know what? Most people who are actually have no concept of Tawheed, or I would say distorted concept of Tawheed, if I would say that. Distorted concept of Tawheed, they are the people who get very easily misguided. And the basis of our religion is Tawheed. And if we don't understand Tawheed, whole of the religion, the whole building of our religion will fall very, very easily, because the foundation is very, very, very risky. Because if it's not on Tawheed, it is hardly ever this whole building of Islam would stand on it. Because if Tawheed is taken away, everything is gone. Then there is no religion. There is nothing. So anyone think, if they are thinking that ways that if we are going to commemorate Muharram and do everything for the love of Hussein, is Hussein even going to look at us if we are doing any shirk on the name of Hussein? Do we think that we should be even considered by a look of Imam Hussein coming to us saying, oh, you are my brothers and sisters who were my lovers, and you do commemorate Ashura and you do everything right? Is Imam Hussein going to come to us because of we are doing any shirk? No. If we are doing everything based on Tawheed, because he has lost his life, he has sacrificed himself, just getting closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just keeping the name of Tawheed above. That was the reason he sacrificed himself. And now we are doing something against his will and desire. Is he going to be happy with us on the day of Judgment Day, when we are expecting that he would be helping us shafaat on that day? Is he going to do shafaat against the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it possible at all for men like Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam? These questions needs to be asked. We should be able to answer those questions. And if somebody is doing something different, it doesn't matter if it's my father or my mother or my grandfather or my neighbor or my teacher or any respected elder. We should disagree. We should try to convince them that's not the right way of doing it, especially to the younger generation, Because of those acts, many a times our younger generation, they take a different path, even the path against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even a path against Islam sometimes, just because of these activities which are not even supported by Islam, which are not supported by Tawheed, these acts of shirk, which are the main reason why we are go against it. So let's move on to the next conclusion. So that's the last slide, and then I'll look up the question. Culture and traditions are good to practice unless they are against the Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to analyze all traditions that they're bringing us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All traditions should be supported by Sunnah of our holy Masumeen alayhi salatu wasalam. Make sure that it is very, very important. Ashura and Arba'in are greatly significant events for us. We need to commemorate focusing on the approval of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are some of the things, if we started to look at it, if we started to ponder upon it, if we started to analyze them, we, inshallah, with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will be on the right path of Tawheed, away from Shirk, and doing the commemoration of Abu Abdullah Hussain alayhi salatu wasalam the right way, the way he would be pleased with us if we are doing something like that, because we are not forgetting Tawheed. Tawheed is the prime reason why Imam Hussain went for his sacrifice. So if we go by that objective, inshallah, Allah would help us to keep us on the right path, keep us on the path of Tawheed, inshallah, and we go from there. So there is one question, just let me read that and see if I can answer that quickly. Okay, so the answer is very simple. I mean, there was a question earlier also about the Masumeen alayhi salatu wasalam, are they from Noor? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he created Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has his power to give his authority by his authority. And you know Allah's authority. Allah's authority is kun fayakun. He has to make a, if you're not even a decision, it's a even a high, I would say, let's say a statement. He don't have to have a statement because he don't have a physical body. But if he makes a decision about something, that happens. You don't have to say the word. So this is just for us, for our understanding. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created Adam alayhi salam. And the energy or the power given to Adam alayhi salam is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he became alive. All the humans, every human being is from Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. So all the human beings are treated as equal. They have been born with all the virtues which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to. Because it is the justice system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have been given equal opportunity. So if I am born with certain benefits and somebody else has not got that benefit, then they have a right on the day of judgment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, Allah, you didn't do any justice to us because I was born with this deficiency and you were born with that deficiency or something else. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by his nature of adl and justice system, he would born, every human being is born with all the powers and potentials, if you will. Our Aimma alayhi salatu wasalam, by their virtue of closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by their virtue of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way it is supposed to be worshipped, they have attained a very high level. And every human being have a potential to attain that high level. So once they have attained a high level, and I have given the example previously as well, that if someone knows about a poison in a glass of water, they would not drink the water because they can see the bad deeds like a poison in a glass of water. So they stay away from those bad deeds. So if they stay away from bad deeds, they stay away from rich, which is the bad deed basically. So if they stay away from rich, their whole body and soul is so pure that it is nothing but the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we call that Noor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the question sometimes comes in that our holy Masumeens and our holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born with the Noor. So that means and they infer from that what sometimes comes in that we cannot follow their sunnah because they were born from Noor and we are born from dirt. No, that is not correct. The reason I just explained, because of their nature, because of their worship, because of the closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have kept away from dirt, from najis, from rich, away from them. And they become pure Noor, and that's all. This is they are. When they were born, again, this whole creation, how they were created, and Holy Prophet Hadith, that's a different discussion altogether, and we can come to that later on. That the Noor of Holy Prophet was born the first, and then after that, that Noor was also created of Imam Ali, and then all the Noors of our Holy Masumeen. This is what we are talking about, is Alam-e-Dhar. Alam-e-Zar is a total different discussion. So let's not mix up all those things. For now, let's understand it this way, that our Holy Masumeen were created as humans as we are. They definitely have kept themselves away from rich and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is no filth, there is no rich, there is no bad things in their system that has been filtered out by themselves. And they have got a higher value and standard in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is also an opportunity to all other human beings as well. If anyone would follow their footstep, and there are examples, we know Hazrat Abbas alayhi salam, we know Hazrat Zainab salamullah alayha, and there are others who have also attained not exactly the same status, but at least closer to their status, because they have not done any sin anyway. They were also away from filth, and any other human being can also get to that, because they are the role model for us. And if we are not able to follow them, then what is the use of having a role model if we are not able to do that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given opportunities to all of us. We all can become that, but again, because of our misdeeds, we make mistakes, we get involved in sometimes sins, then we have to go and ask forgiveness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are our shortcomings, because many a times we forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We do not always 24/7 thinking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because our Holy Masumeen were never ever for even a small second without thinking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that brings a higher status from us, and that what we call it, that they were created with Noor. So again, the question about the Sajdega, I have already answered that in the last session, meaning this is the fatwa of Ayatollah al-Uzma Sistani, that any effect, any writing on the Sajdega, which is, first of all, if it is not able to keep the surface smooth, because if you have any scriptures or writing in front of the Sajdega or the turba, there is a problem, because your forehead should be still on the surface. And if it is not, then you should turn it around, turn it backwards to the plain surface of the turba. And this is the fatwa of Ayatollah Sistani, and I can pass it on later if you will. So that's what it is about that. And the question about, okay, let me see, what's the question? Some people have influence or bad woman success over needs some kind of shirk. Okay. Okay, so there was one other question which came up earlier, and I wanted to answer that first. That was, that's a book which I am relating to. This is the Agha Hassan Abtahi book, The People Who Have Seen Imam Zaman alayhi salatu wasalam. So this is the book where is a story has been narrated in here. It's about Allama Muqaddas Adbili. He used to be a very noble, famous scholar. So he used to get help from Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. He used to live in Najaf. So he used to visit Imam Ali's shrine. And whenever, because of he was a high caliber scholar, so he used to go there and ask questions about, guidance about the technical matters of the jurisprudence of Islam. So one night when he was, very late night, he was walking towards the shrine of Imam Ali alayhi salam. One of his student followed him to see where he's going. So he went to the shrine of Imam Ali, And when he come closer, he did salam to Imam Ali. He got a response from the grave, and he asked some questions. So Imam Ali told him something which the student did not hear. So he just kept following his teacher, Muqaddas Akbeli. So he came out of Imam Ali's shrine and then he started walking towards the Masjid-e-Kufa. So he approached there, and then in Masjid-e-Kufa, he saw a young gentleman came closer to him, and they had some discussion, and then he started turning back, coming to the city. The student was still following. Anyway, so he had one time the student sneezes, so the teacher spotted him out, and he came to him and he said, why were you following me, and what have you seen? So the student told the whole story that I saw you getting into Imam Ali's shrine and then to Masjid-e-Kufa. So I don't know what you were doing and what are the details of that. So Muqaddas Akberi said, okay, I will share the story with you, but you do not tell anyone until I am alive. So after my death, you're free to share. So this student shared after his death. The story was that Muqaddas Akberi used to go to Imam Ali's shrine to ask questions, and Imam Ali responded back to him that day that, why are you coming to me? You have a living Imam in your city. Go and ask him this question. And he said, well, how do I get there? He said, go to Masjid-e-Kufa and you will meet with him. So he went to Masjid-e-Kufa. He met Imam-e-Zaman, Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Faraju Sharif, and he asked all the questions. And Imam-e-Zaman answered the questions to him. And then when he was coming back, when the student, get to discuss that with the Muqaddas Akberi. So the bottom line on that story was that when we have a living Imam present in our lives today in this world, who is the source of all the power in this world, because he's Hujjatullah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has selected him as his Hujjat, and he is a living Imam. So we have been obliged, and our responsibility is to attend to him, to ask him to help. He is the one who should be always remembered, day and night, morning and evening. If we have any problem, any difficulties, any situations where we need some help and guidance and support, we should be the one who is turning towards him, asking his help, asking him to help us in situations which could lead us into troubles. So time like this, when we are going through this crisis of COVID-19, it is our responsibility to make sure that we should be reciting du'as which is related to Imam Zaman, especially Ziyarate al-Yasin, Dua Nudba, and then there are other hajats which relates directly to Imam Zaman. There are special prayers which deals with how we should be contacting Imam Zaman and asking our help from him. And again, these are all the helps which we will be getting. Again, this is not against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has put him as Hujjatullah in this universe. And we are going to ask him a favor, meaning he will pray for us. He will make dua for us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because again, remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate power. He is the one who gives everything to all of us. And we are going to our Imam, who is the holiest person alive in this universe at this time, asking his help to pray for us. And if he would pray for us, we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept it. And we have already talked about it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate to decide if he wants to accept the dua or not. So that's the answer to that question about someone who has asked us that if we can relate to other Imams or Imam Zaman. It's always preferable to relate to our present Imam, Imam Zaman, who is the Imam of our time. So there are other questions which are being pushed on to that, but let me see if that is an easy, quick answer, but otherwise I'll have to postpone it to the next class because I am already above on the time wise. So let me see a question. Having your needs met by being discreet. Some people have influence or bad omens on the success of or need some kind of shirk. Well, okay, yeah, I answered this question about the turba already. So it is not acceptable to have anything engraved on the turba. It should be plain surface because of that. So brother, I am a little bit mistaken about this question. I would request you to please state that question. The one which is about meeting needs met by being discreet is in believing that some people have influence or bad omens of the success of some kind of shirk. Are you still there? Can you please
Yes.
explain a little bit?
We use, we hear a lot this hadith, استعينوا على قضاء حوائجكم بالكتمان, which means translate into seek help in having your needs met by being discreet. So isn't like, this is some kind of believing, like, that some people have, like, influence on our, the success of our need, this is a kind of shirk or not, I mean, we hear a lot. I'm not sure how strong is the hadith. I know that it's, it's very common. I read it several times. I heard it several times, and I don't know. Yeah.
Well, so the bottom line, if you ask me, I mean, my personal feeling about that, I would say, you see, our belief is Allah is the most supreme. He is the most powerful, right? There is no other entity or anything which can influence in any way on the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we have decided something will happen, it will happen. We can only ask through different means, as we have discussed about tawassul and possible options of, getting His mercy closer and faster, if you will, or ask for another aid, if you will, an additional help, if you will. So that could help us. Now, on the other side, if someone is like negatively harming you in a respect, so that could also possibly could happen. Meaning, that's a very long discussion, but I just try to summarize it very quickly. Meaning, if our faith is strong, meaning there is no doubts in our faith, we will not be hardly influenced by negative effects of anything or any entity or any possibly, if you will, sometimes they say like satanic forces, the powers of satanic forces. I mean, there is acceptable, there is negative forces also believed to be there. And those only affect those people who have, if you will, doubts in their belief system. If our belief system is stronger, we have unshakable belief system. And if we have more, I would say, less chance of affected by these negative powers. I don't know, I mean, it's very hard to explain you in a few minutes. It's a lengthy topic. It's a lot of discussion behind it in order to build up the whole case and just talk about it with that. So maybe I'm not doing justice of even trying to answer your question in that respect. There was one question which just came up in my mind that was asked a little bit earlier today also on the WhatsApp group, that what is the effect of jinns and to human beings? Yeah, jinn has a different kind of makhluk, that's being of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have rules to follow, and they are not superior than us. Human beings obviously are ashraful makhluqat. So they are there, and there are always, majority of jinns are not mu'min, they are kafir. Minor portion of jinns are mu'min, and they follow marja taqleed as well. So they offer salat and everything like us. But the negative jinns, if you will, the kafir jinns, they have a lot of effects because we are not able to, human beings cannot see them, so they can affect us. And they do that in many, many occasions. And that is the reason we have to have a very strong belief system on Tawheed. That's one. Second, we should remain away from najasa. Najasa is something which takes away the purity among ourselves, meaning not only physically, but also it affects the, ruhani, meaning the spiritual power of us. So that is one other way of keeping away from these negative impacts of, you will, from these, negative sources which are there. They are jinn, they are shayateen, there are other sources which could affect us negatively. So first thing, again, always have in tahara, our dress, our body, and that brings us our ruh to be tahir also in that respect. So that would give us opportunity. And then again, never forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whenever we are empty, because what they say is empty mind is a devil's workshop. So do not have your mind empty. If you're not thinking about something else, and if you're not involved in activity which takes us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can always do a tasbih, for example, Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah. I mean, there are multiple tasbihs we can do that. That means, why are we doing tasbih? It means reminding us ourselves that we are not forgetting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for even a brief second. And all these activities takes us towards closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Secondly, protect us from the negative impacts, possibly from all those around us, if you will. And that happens to all of us. And sometimes people get subdued with that, and they don't even think of for 1 second that it could be our own mistake. How it could be our mistake? Because if we are not away from najasa, we are not in the wuzu, we are not thinking of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are the areas where they can attack us, just like a virus maybe, and we are not able to defend us. So maybe, I don't know, I mean, I'm still not very satisfied with the answer I'm trying to give you, but that's a detailed question and a lot of details needs to be discussed. But thanks for that question.
أحسنتم شيخ أحسنتم.
Okay, so again, this is all we have for today, inshallah. And if we have, we will try to, go a little bit deeper into this topic of Muharram and Ashura. Some other areas are still need to be covered. So I hope, inshallah, next Saturday, we'll try to cover that topic. And if there are any questions, just send it over to me in the WhatsApp group, so I have a chance to prepare myself. And please try to give me some time. I appreciate your questions, but sometimes the question comes in right like 5 minutes before the session. So it will be harder for me even to read that question. So I don't claim to be that, and I'm an alim and I know answers for all the questions, but I have to do some research. So give me some time to do some research. I'll appreciate that. Thank you very much. So with that, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Jazakallah khairan ahsant. Allah yatawwal umrak, mashallah. You are taking so much time out of your own personal time to educate us. Jazakallah khairan, and Ramadan Mubarak wa taqabbalallah ta'atkum. Assalamu alaikum. We will be very discreet with our questions and give you, inshallah, plenty of time to research. And if there is any discussion, you can always tell us that this will be, if there is a time limit, we can always answer those questions at the end of the session if there is time on next session. Thank you, Jazakallah.
Thank you, brother, and thank you for all your comments and questions. And I just forgot in the beginning, I should have said it earlier, that Ramzan Mabruk to all of you. Today is the first of Ramadan. MashaAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us tawfiq to have all the period of Ramadan, the whole month of Ramadan, as blessed as possible. And inshallah will give us an opportunity to fast and pray and get closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thank you for attending. And inshallah, as I announced earlier, that Sundays I have been asked by IBAS to do a session like 7:30, I believe. And the topic I have selected is Quranic sciences. So inshallah, we'll talk about that on Sundays, inshallah. But this time is fixed for our topic of Shirk and Tauheed, inshallah. I will continue during the month of Ramadan, inshallah. So with that, inshallah, we'll thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyaka al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, salatuka alayhi wa la abahi fi haza issa wa fi kulli sa. Waliyam wa hafizan wa qaidan wa nasiran wa dalilan wa ainan hatta tuskinahu warzaka tawa wa tamattu fiha tabila. اللهم اجعلني انصاري واواني واتباعي وشيتي اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اجل فرجهم. Allah Hafiz. See you next time. Allah Hafiz.